Right, first question from Nicholas Langdon, who says, given that Murray Walker referred to the accident at Turn 1 as absolutely predictable, suggesting Senna had telegraphed his intentions beforehand, obviously we talked about that a lot, why was no action taken to punish Senna in any way? Was it to avoid tarnishing the outcome of the title? We did talk about this a little bit in the episode, and we had those quotes from Jean-Marie Balestre, who said that he didn't believe there was anything in the rules that would allow them to take action against Senna. I subsequently found something else, which is a Max Mosley comment from his book about what happened. I've got it here to hand, and it is really interesting. Max said in his book that the race director, Jan Cmmit, had seen it as a racing incident, so did not take any action. So that would suggest that there was some sort of, we don't have investigations like we do now and the way stewards work and all that, but it does appear that somebody looked at it, somebody in authority looked at it on the day and went, I'm not going to take action. So there was a conscious decision taken to let that lie as a racing incident, which I found fascinating. And Mosley went on to say Balestre had attacked the race director for taking this view, and Mosley then defended the race director, saying that as FIA president or FISA president, you should not be interfering or passing view or putting pressure on the officials. And Max referenced just before that in his book that he says outright, Balestre went into the stewards room the year before at Suzuka and said that Senna had to be disqualified for cutting the chicane, which Max clearly says in the book, quite wrong and a clear abuse of power. I'm sure Suzuka 89 is going to come up again, but I thought that was I like it when we can use these debriefs to put some meat on the bones of the things we discuss in the main episode, and I felt that Mosley quote did that. Aidan Dulowry says, how surprised are you that Senna got away without a significant ban or points deduction, given he was wrongly villainised for the 89 incident and given a suspended ban, I believe? Surely FISA would have an excuse, if nothing else, to punish him properly. It was, in my view, absolutely crazy that he was disqualified for what he did in 1989, cutting the chicane, but got away with this one. Maybe this reflects the mess that FISA was in under Balestre at the time. And then Sim Racer Sam says, how on earth did Senna come so close to losing his licence at the end of 1989 when he was largely innocent, minus the bump start, yet in 1990 nothing happened when he arguably did the worst act of road rage in F1 history? It's utter madness. And we have had criticism for being so harsh on Senna for Suzuka 90. Anyone who's listened to the 89 episode will know that we were incredibly sympathetic towards him for all of the treatment that he received after that race from the authorities. It was horrible. We were able to detail it at great lengths thanks to a great interview he gave to a Japanese writer that went in Autosport magazine at the time. Senna gave loads of information. I may at some point pull all of that out and do a specific video on it for our YouTube channel, because the treatment he went through and the details of just how much more there was to it. And he used the phrase, I was treated like a criminal. And once you lay out all the things he went through, it really did feel like that. So it does make it crazy that firstly you get disqualified from the race for this little corner cut where you get bump started down an escape road, which is ridiculous. And then nothing happens here. And as we've explained in the first question, the race director decided this was a racing incident, which is mad, but that's besides the point, I guess. And Balestre, afterwards, despite disagreeing with that, it's kind of held his hands up and said, there's nothing we can do in the rules to fix that. And Max Mosley in later years would go, well, actually, no, we need to find something to do about this, when there were collisions kept deciding championships, or at least too many of them. So, yeah, utterly crazy that we could have so much legislative fallout from Suzuka 89 and then nothing for 1990. It doesn't make any sense. And yes, it does reflect that FISA just wasn't fit for purpose. Right. Jake Nelson says, what do you think the punishment would be if this happened today? I seem to remember the race director's notes at Abu Dhabi 2021 making a specific reference to the possibility of penalties for any deliberate collision. And Andy Barber says, do you think Senna should have been stripped of his points, as what happened to Michael Schumacher in 1997 for what happened at Jerez? Yeah, the answer to both of those questions really is the same, which is, I think post Jerez 97, which I think, as we said on the episode, that was Mosley's line in the sand, pulling Michael out of that championship when it was second place. And I said it's easier to do when you're punishing the guy who lost out. But it allowed Mosley to do this not that controversial line in the sand. So everybody knew in the future, if you try something like this and you're deemed to be at fault, this is going to be your punishment. So the idea was not that would ever mean you have to throw out a champion in the future. The idea is that would be in people's minds and they wouldn't do it next time. So to answer Jake's question, what would the punishment be? I think it would be you would be excluded, as Schumacher was in 97. And Andy Barber says, do you think that's what should have happened here? Yes, I completely do. And then you have to wonder, would that have been the line in the sand? And would that have stopped at the Adelaide 94 and Jerez 97 collisions involving Schumacher happening? I'm not going to dig into that right now because I think those were perhaps instinctive, not premeditated. But who knows? It might have made Michael think twice. Right, next up, Jono says, do you think the race director should have red flagged the race after the antics into turn one? If they did, would there be a repeat of what just happened? Can you imagine if they just keep red flagging the race? Senna keeps doing it and it happens until they run out of spare cars. I don't think it should have been red flag because, as you saw, the cars ended up right at the end of the gravel trap, up against the tyre barrier, really. They're a long way from the track. There wasn't really much debris or anything like that on the track. Obviously, Gerhard Berger goes off there the following lap and says, I sort of spun because the track was a bit dirty. And we criticise Gerhard for that. You tread carefully when you've just seen there's been an accident, but there wasn't a huge track obstruction that I think, particularly in these days, would justify red flagging the race. If they did, would there have been a repeat? It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. If nobody could get to Senna and say, if you do that again, we're going to disqualify you, Senna will be sat in the car going, if he beats me off the line again, I'm going to take the same action. So I could definitely see that happening. That would have made this story even more remarkable. Right, to those of you watching on YouTube, thanks so much for tuning into these. Thanks so much for being early supporters of this channel, whether you're watching the full episodes that we're putting out, or you're just engaging with the clips. We do want to give you snippets of our members' content, just so there's more original stuff here. If you're listening to our full podcast elsewhere, we want this channel to be of value to you, and just to give you a peek behind the curtain so you can see the sort of stuff that's going on in the members club. So if you want to hear the rest of this conversation and you want to get involved in the future, check the description and the pinned comment below so you can have a look at the Race Members Club. If you're watching this in the first few weeks after this video comes out, we do have a 90% off your first month offer running at the moment. So it's a great chance to come in, pay very little, and check out our massive back catalogue that we've got. Check out these debriefs in full, all the other things that we do in the Members Club, and you can do it for a very, very reasonable price, even more reasonable than our usual price, which I think is really good value for the amount of stuff we do in there. So yeah, come and check us out. We'd love to see you in there.